Okay. Well, why don't I call the meeting to order at 9:04 a.m. President Bill McGowan, Carol Rowe, Wayne Sawchuk, Paul Kears, Dan Coughlin. So our first order of business is our next meeting, which will be the 8th of November. That's good for me. And
sounds good to me.
And I know that we have one of our subjects here is Tim Davis and Josh Kimball. We're going to postpone them until the 8th of November as well.
Okay.
And I'll let them know what's going on. So this RCWMP, what is that?
That was an email from Jason from Woodward and Curran. The date was October 18th.
Was this a regional sewer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bill, that's regional sewer. Some reason my video is not working, but
Yeah, so on that, we know that Woodward and Curran and Rosemary Blacker are working on a revised plan, mainly a construction estimate and schedules and things of that nature. And we should be getting a response on that, I think, in about 3 weeks. There were some paperwork issues that delayed it a little bit, and that got resolved 2 weeks ago, and they're now chugging ahead.
Now, do we have any comments on the plan there? Because I think that that certainly Brewster Road and stuff should be, those 40 or so houses should be sewered.
Yeah.
Right next to it's Henry Turner Bailey Road that would be sewered in the Situate side. So it seems crazy not to have that in there.
No, that's true. I think that they're going by whatever the original mandate was given to them by the two towns, and they can add on whatever we want. So I think, in my own opinion, obviously to everybody here, we probably would want to get the plan, get the updated cost on whatever the original thing was, and then add areas in as we see fit. And get an estimate on that. But I agree with you. I think we should do that because there's got to be they've got to be affecting the Gulf at some point.
Mm-hmm. And of course, right across the street is the brook running, within 150 feet of the highway in some place. So there's no question it's close to that.
Yeah.
Now, how?
Yeah, you submitted a map of the whole area. So it does go around the entire Gulf, which I'm happy to see because they didn't seem to want to do that end of border. So, but it does seem to be a lot more farther away from the Gulf than I anticipated.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, it's basically Situate sector. You're going down Gannett Road. You're picking up Mordecai Lincoln, which is on the Gulf, certainly South Main Street from basically St. Anthony's south. The areas that Wayne is mentioning, I think we've talked about that for years now, about having that included as well at some point. So I think rather than derail them, I think we finish this study and then ask them to add on stuff as we need it.
Mm-hmm. And I think what the study has to include is the connections necessary to take the flow that isn't going into our treatment plant to Hull, and that has to be documented and estimated and stuff, in terms of we have to put a force main from either our plant down Elm Street and North Main Street to Jerusalem Road or wherever the size pipe is that we need to go to Hull. And it might, we're gonna have to go down at least to the, where there's a 6-inch pipe. And I think Dan has that information that he can provide, but I think it should be right part of the, not just connecting those areas to protect the water, but where is it going to connect to Hull or somewhere else to take care of the flows?
Yeah.
And then,
You know,
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I think that they're aware of that. I don't think I know. The last meeting that I went to with the Situate Town Hall, and I think Wayne, you were with us, or with me anyway, that they were discussing going through Jerusalem Road to the connection in Hull, mainly because I think I made a comment that if we're going to dig up the entire Atlantic Jerusalem Road line and Margin Street, I think there'll be chaos in the world. So they've got to use whatever existing lines we have, and then have something we have to deal with is how do we then add an appropriate charge to Situate for maintenance and any unforeseeable circumstances that occur. So, but that we can do that once we get some more information from Woodard and Curran on that. So
Yeah, so is the current plan to, now I'm looking at the map that was sent out to everyone, and obviously that area from South Main into Situate seems to be more densely populated than North Cohasset. So don't we have to identify how much we're pumping from North Cohasset to equal what this southern section of sewer is going to be, so that we're equivalent in the amount of flow?
yes, but Woodard and Curran has in that document, Paul, has an estimate with some margin attached to it as to the flow rates from North Situate.
Okay.
I don't remember what they were, but it didn't seem, and I'm not an engineer, but it didn't seem to be excessive, put it that way.
I think there's another aspect to this, and it certainly would be if we could have a alternate route, like going down the railroad tracks I talked about, or going down the side of 3A, or whatever it happens to be, to get to Hull and probably connection onto Hull Street. That would be the ideal situation, so that what flows, in other words, we have a situation where the 6-inch line on Jerusalem Road could have been almost like the incident that happened. If that 6-inch only line going to Hull ruptured, we are out not only in Cohasset, but we're out all in Situate and everywhere else. And what do you do with those flows? What, you cannot have it come out of the ground and into the water and stuff like that. So there has to be, in my opinion, and almost at any cost, a second route to Hull if that's where the sewer is going to go to.
Yeah, I mean, just for a variety of reasons, I'm kind of not wanting to go down 3A, but I like the railroad track idea, as long as we don't have an issue there. But I think once we get the numbers, we can start going through all that. In fact, what I think we might want to do is have a separate meeting with Situate and Woodard and Curran, and go through all of the permutations that could be possible with this event, because there's a bunch of them.
Right. And the next part of that is what is this situation may be hurt by people that are on South Main Street that don't necessarily want to go onto sewer. When we did, the Little Harbor project, we wanted a court mandate that everybody had to connect. And even with the court requirements and everything else, it took several years to get everybody connected. On South Main Street, what are the people on South Main Street in Cohasset going to have to pay in relationship to what Situate people are paying and what the total cost of it is, and is there going to be a fee on top of it? You know, is this gonna be like the Little Harbor project? We go only to the, you know, the property lines and only to the houses that are existing, not to any vacant land or anything else? Or is it going to be something different? And these
I
are
don't, yeah, I don't have an
major
answer to that.
issues though, when you think about it.
Yeah,
You know,
no
we
doubt.
have to design it for everybody, but everybody might not want it. And is there a way of forcing people to do it? And in fact, what is it gonna cost the people to do it?
Yeah, I don't think we can force anyone without any kind of a, like an EPA mandate, which came out of Little Harbor. So I don't think we can do that. I think a lot of people will do it, but will everyone do it? No. My opinion.
Right. And of course, I'm assuming this goes to one contractor to do everything, right? So, and both towns, Situate and Cohasset, are going to have to, you know, agree to whatever's happening. And then we have to know what state and federal reimbursement we're going to get to see whether or not, you know, the whole thing's doable. I mean, if we could get a grant for 100% of the cost, it's a no-brainer. But if it's for, you know, 50% of the cost, and it's going to be millions of dollars more, it has to be sold to the town for town meeting.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's the first thing we have to figure out, who's paying for it, and number two, who's paying for it. When we had discussions with Situate, they being the town manager, basically said that he was very confident they can get between state and federal grants to pay for all, if not most of it. What the most is as a percentage, I don't know, but there are a lot of grants out there Googling around for regional sewer and regionalization as a whole.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we got a ton of work to do on this. We're just scratching it right now, so. we'll
So
get
is
into
there
it.
going to be a meeting coming up, or are we going to
Well,
wait?
I think what we need to do is get the report from Woodard and Curran and circulate that amongst the board. And Situate will get it as well. And then we should have a joint meeting with Situate and Woodard and Curran, go over it. And then all these, I mean, almost we need to do is have a list of every single thing that either we know we needed to address, and then also what might be unknowns that we need to address. You know, like, what do we do with the line on Jerusalem Road? Is it large enough to take our flow and Situate's flow at the same time? That kind of stuff.
Right. But what do you have as an alternative?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
I don't know.
with water lines, you know, you have a large, you know, 8 or 10 or 12-inch pipe, and it has, you know, connections at every street corner and everything onto the whole system. But ours is not that way. You know, ours is a single line going down the street from one town to another that has the capacity for about half of our flows, which means, of course, you have to have a bigger pipe to even take the balance of our flows, you know, to help.
Yeah.
That, you know, really a bypass, a connection to the 6-inch, but also a bypass would almost be, you know, just totally necessary.
Yep.
Okay.
So once we get that, we'll forward it off to everybody, and then we'll go from there. So we've got Tim Davis taken care of. We have a review on the Cook estate. Who from
Okay,
Cook wants to?
Let me put them all in. Okay, you should be all set now.
I don't see Tom Flannery up here. I think he's on. He just texted me.
Yep, he's
There
on
he is.
now.
He is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah, I see him on as well.
I'm trying to get my camera to work, but that's not cooperating.
I think it's disabled.
Yeah, it says the host is disabled, the cameras.
For the.
I did?
2017.
Yeah.
one.
Okay,
Um,
I guess my camera is disabled, but can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Okay. So, Bill, I guess I'll give a brief update. The pump that we were waiting on, which was expected to be received the first week of November, I guess has been received by Mahoney, the distributor, on Friday. So I think Paul Davis can arrange, I don't know if Paul's on, but if he is, he can talk, but he'll be picking that up and I guess can begin the installation on that and the generator. So we'll be able to proceed. That was the big thing we were waiting on. I think there was supposed to be a pressure test this week on the house that the easement was granted on. So I don't, again, he or somebody could speak to that if that went successfully. And then lastly, in terms of the sewer connection agreement, I understand that's going to be discussed here today, but again, we'll need a final review of that with our attorney and with our specialist. But I think hopefully it's ready for prime time in terms of where we are in the process here.
yeah, I think, well, that's, it's good on the pump. As far as the contract goes, I've reviewed it and I'd like the board to also give their comments. I think we're between third base and home on this. Dan Coughlin did find a slight error in the EDU calculations that resulted in a approximately $10,000 reduction in your connection fee. So we want to have that addressed.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, I think when I looked through it last, it looked fine to me with the corrections as far as the EDU, so the EDUs and the final charge. And I think that Sharon is on. Sharon, do you want to comment at all as far as where we are with this?
Yes, thank you. I think we're almost in final shape. There are a few questions I have for the board, if I could ask them at this point, or would you rather we discuss this later?
No, fire away.
Okay, so one of the questions that Dan had is that if the town is going to be responsible for those parts of the sewer connection that are on the Cook Estates property itself.
I would say no. We've gotten rid of all of the easements and all of the, we're not taking care of like grinder pumps or any of that. We're out of that business.
No, I understand about the grinder pumps, but that portion of the sewer system that's on the Cook Estates property.
Excuse me, are you asking for what's going to happen to the existing system? Or are you asking the existing system, meaning their septic system? If it has to be decommissioned, or are you talking about the main that goes down to the school?
I'm talking about the main that goes from the school down to Cook Estates property.
Okay, and
We originally talked about owning the line from the property line, from Cook's property line to the school, which
Okay.
I believe that's what we discussed with
Yeah, we
Brian
did.
Joyce. Yeah.
Okay, so I will make that clear that the responsibility for the maintenance of that portion of the main rests with the Cook Estates.
Correct.
Okay,
And the Haggerty property would be addressed as a normal resident property.
correct. Okay.
No, we'll have to get into an eye review. I'm not sure we understand the difference there and how that would work differently with this, how we would maintain it. Not sure what that means, but we'll need to review, as we said, with Sean Hardy, Paul Davis. We get the information back. We'll probably have more questions there. Yeah,
Okay.
Bill, I understood we'd be responsible for maintaining the pump, the generator, all that stuff, the line itself. I thought that, you know, that's what we have the guaranteed period of 1 year for, in the warranty. So if anything goes wrong, it'll be addressed by us in the first year. But after that, I thought that you would own the piping. Because you do have an easement to our property to make any repairs or whatever might be needed.
Actually, we don't have an easement yet on Cook Estates property. We have one on the Heggie property, which needs to be assigned to us after the construction is completed. But we don't have one yet on your property.
I would think there's a standard utility easement up there for all utilities, isn't there?
There's no language addressing the easement here, so we need a separate easement from you if
Okay.
the town is to maintain that sewer line down on the Cook Estate property.
First I've heard of this.
Yeah, I remember discussions we had about the other, as Tom said, the general utilities easement would cover it. But if it needs to be addressed, it needs to be addressed. I'm surprised it's coming up this late. We have this much of a misunderstanding.
I can draft a utility easement which kind of mirrors the one that is from the Heggies. If the board tells me that they need the easement. And I'm asking.
Well,
I
do
think-
we, go ahead, Wayne.
I think there may be a responsibility for us for the portion that is new, that was put in to connect I guess, the first pump chamber, which may go onto the property for 100 or 200 feet or something. I'd be more than welcome to have the responsibility for something new. I don't know if we want responsibility of any of the older collection stuff that we don't have, you know, that we don't know what the condition of it is, or whether it's going to last, you know, 20 more years, or whether it's going to last 6 months.
If I could just talk to it as well. You know, you can do anything you want. What we've historically done is where the sewer starts to traverse another property is where you'd pick up your easement, or where two services come together. So on a historical base, it would be typically at the Cook Estate property line, extending through Heggie's property, you know, obviously into the school. That'd be your traditional acceptance of an easement. And you still hold several of those in the system to preserve the right of the last person on the end of the line to get their flow into the town system. In this case, I think there was a little bit misunderstanding as far as what was going to be done. I believe Cook, like they indicated, got that everything after the pump, in other words, the force main on, even on their property, was going to be covered. But there is no conveyance of that easement on the Cook Estate property. It is now not in the street, it is also behind private properties or, you know, backyards where it traverses now. So it's a little bit more difficult for the town to get in there and access it. But, you know, there is a lot of facilities there that, you know, Cook would have to maintain. So, I mean, the decision's obviously the board's, but if you want to take control of the force main all the way back to the pump, then obviously a separate easement has to be defined and accepted by the town for that portion.
Dan, could you get the board a topical plan of the system? Just kind of a general overview of it, and kind of demonstrate where we would end the line as far as sewer commission is concerned. So from the property line, or how far into the property we are.
I think we, you know, obviously we need to establish an as-built plan with the locations of the sewer as it was built. And I'm not sure how far away Tom Hardy is on that plan, but that would be essential to forming, you know, a general easement, if that's what you want to accept. Tom, I don't know if you've detailed an easement so far in anticipation of granting something to the to the town, but I think it has to come from an as-built plan of where the sewer is now, because that's a little vague in my mind. I don't know if I've seen an actual plan of the as-built location.
Okay,
So Dan, when's the last time you got updated plans?
When the rerouting, in other words, the
yep.
proposed route in back of the properties. But, obviously things change sometimes during construction.
Okay.
So we do need an as-built anyways.
Okay.
The line is in, that should be surveyed and a plan produced. And from there, basically, you can then detail, a 20-foot wide easement or whatever you need, to gain access to this. And one of the issues was that you have release manholes in the backyard, and the closest access point is a driveway. So you'd also need access and egress through the roads of Cook and possibly that driveway in order to conduct such maintenance.
all right, well, maybe I'll talk to Sean about the as-built plan, and maybe Sharon can take a shot at drafting the easement with Dan's help there on the specifics of what you might need. And then we'll take a look at that with our attorney and get back to you.
Yeah, the only thing before you, spend all that time, I think the board has to be of a mindset, basically, that they will be accepting that in some fashion. And I don't know if you want to discuss that further, but.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to
Dan,
have Brian Joyce let us know what his thoughts are on it as well, because, Brian's the one who's got to maintain the line. So I'm not sure what he's comfortable with or what standard that he's done in the past.
Yeah,
Generally,
no, I think Dan had mentioned it. I mean, it's the sewer department maintains shared lines, and typically it's you. I think it's 2 or 3 more services. Any pipe that conveys more than 2 or 3 more services is typically maintained by the sewer department up to the shutoff valve. So I don't have the design in front of me, but is this multiple E1s for each house, or are we just are they gravity to a singular pump station?
it's a single pump station and a single force main. And the question, obviously from the perspective of the agreement, it's with the Cook Estates as a whole. So it's a single entity. So, it really is up to the commission what they want to do. And like I said, in the past, it's always been from the perspective of the property line. And I think I gave you an example like 100 Pond Street. We have nothing inside the property. It's basically as soon as it hits the common roadway outside of the property limits that the town picks it up in terms of responsibility.
Right.
But on
Yeah, so where would the shutoff be then, Dan? Or you don't have that plan in front of you?
Basically, if you're not going to accept the portion on Cook Estates, then I would recommend to shut off right there at the property line. I don't think there's
Okay.
one that exists there now. So.
And if we go into the Cook Estate by,
Then basically you have a shut off, I believe, right after the pumping station. You
Okay.
also have them at the air release manhole, but there should be one also at the pumping station.
okay. So once we get those plans for you, we can identify where that is and what kind of cause and effect it has on us before we vote on accepting any extension into the property.
But Brian, as a whole, the sort of town's position is that we deal with it. Is that true?
So it's generally to the shutoff valve, and if the shutoff valve, if you're considering this one service, or and the shutoff valve is at the property line, like Dan had just mentioned, then you could draw the limit there. And the pump station, I think it should be downstream of the pump station. So really talking about if there's a leak on the force main between the pump station and the property line, do you fix that? Or what are you willing to accept? The pump station, the air valve, or just the main, or leave it all to Cook Estates and have a shut off at the property line?
Well, I would say that we do whatever we've done in the past. I mean, if we've been doing it from, a pump station or whatever, then that's, if there's a precedent as to what we've done in the past, we should follow it.
Yeah, my only point is you do have a connection agreement here that you're drafting, and has a lot of provisions in it. So, in theory, you could use that document to do whatever you want.
Yeah, so I guess we have to decide where the shut-off valve goes.
Yeah.
Property line in between or at the pumping station.
Or where the shut-off valve already is. I mean, what Paul's done is construction up to there. This is, you know,
Yeah.
coming in with a new twist on things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've reviewed this plan at every stage of the
go
game
through it.
here. So, I mean, I think the shut off is probably at the pump where, again, where you guys have seen this through the planning process. So if we have to change it now, that seems a little bit unfair.
Well, I don't think we're going that route. If that's where it is, that's where it is.
And if that's where it is and you need an easement, then we'll take a look at that. But we haven't heard about this easement before, so we haven't really taken the steps to draft that up. I thought there was a general utilities easement that existed so the town could get access to, you know, the Cook Estate property for any utility issue that arises up there, whether it's water or gas or other utilities.
Right, well, the thing is, there is no existing sewer utility on the site that's publicly operated or maintained, so. At this point in time, there isn't anything.
The water mains in there are all maintained by the town, right? The
Correct.
fire hydrants and stuff?
Yeah, I don't know who else would, but that's what we have with separate water service with the town, same flow.
There's a service at the top of the hill across from Fair Oaks that the town I think they fixed that service lateral, but only in the limits of the road layout.
So let's get the plans, Dan, and find out where the shut-off valve currently is and make a decision as to how far into the property we're going to go, and then that would determine the level of easement we need.
Yeah, so on that, I would just recommend Hardy prepare an as-built plan. We'll start from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Sean Hardy's on. I don't understand why he can't respond to this.
I don't see him on. Is he on?
No, I'm on. I can certainly prepare the plan. We don't have it yet. I mean, an as-bilt's going to include the location of the pump station that hasn't been delivered yet and some of the valving that's associated with it. So we're not necessarily at the point that I can send an as-built out. We can probably show where the force main is and where it is to date, but it wouldn't be a final as-built.
I think they'd be fine for the board to review.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we know where you're gonna put it, you know, I mean, you know, if you got a plan and then it becomes the as-built, I mean, what's the difference in my mind?
Isn't there something that exists that was done when we came back? And this is a question to Sean. That when we moved the pipe behind the houses, wasn't something there designed, reviewed with Dan and or others?
Yeah, that was a proposed plan, but sometimes the routes change, so that's why we requested the as-built.
Yeah,
The as-built will be
definitely
done
cheap.
when the connection is done. So as Sean said, you know, we'll provide what's expected over the finalization.
So the
So Sean,
question is,
how soon could you get some as-built? Is it a 2-week task or?
Yeah,
Longer?
probably less. I just have to meet
Okay.
again with Paul Davis and just confirm a few things.
Okay, so if we can get an as-built plan by the 8th is our next meeting, we can make a decision prior to that. As far as the board is concerned, we can always, you know, conduct another meeting just on this specific topic of where we want to have the shut-off valve ownership to.
I have a second question.
Okay.
The agreement, you know, contemplates that there'll be a guarantee, but it also mentions a $25,000 bond to cover expenses that may come up during the guarantee period. And the question is whether you want the guarantee and the bond or just the guarantee?
So Sharon, the task that we had left for you was to see if the guarantee from the contractor was equal to or better than having a bond in place.
Okay,
So it's a decision we're waiting to hear from you on.
okay, my apologies. I'll take a look at the bond today and let you know.
Okay. We don't need both. No, I don't think so.
I have a couple of just little typos and stuff if we wanted to handle them really quickly.
Or you can redline it and send it to her.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that might be easier.
Yeah, and we can, if necessary, we could do a quick meeting on this next week just to get it done and dusted. If we have to.
Sure.
And I have a sort of a question for the board, but something that I think should happen. And that is the application fee that they paid, the $27,000. I think that our application fees were intended to have an engineer look at the plans, have the inspections done, do the testing and stuff like that. So I think that $27,000 should be going for a credit on what it is that they've done with all engineering, consulting, legal, and other fees, reasonably incurred that have to do with number 2D, which is where they had the fund for $10,000, which shall be periodically replenished and stuff like that.
We've already agreed to remove that.
We have, okay.
Yep.
Good.
So so about 2 months ago, we agreed to use the 27,000 for expenses and remove the 10,000 deposit requirement. And then any expenses beyond the 27,000 would be submitted to Cook for reimbursement to the town.
Okay, so the copy that I've got that was just sent to me a few days ago doesn't say that.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know why it was still in there, but we had agreed to take that out 2 months ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
This is when Tom first took over as the lead person there at the association.
The other thing, did you keep it in or did you take it out? This is the association agrees to pay, and this is under 3-C, which has to do with having the Cook people pay 115% of the highest rate then currently levied by the town of the Hull.
We received a second red line from Sharon taking that part of the language out.
Okay, good, thank you. That was on my copy too.
Right. Yeah, so that would have been, it was a blue lined act technically instead of red. So she changed the language to state that they would pay whatever the fee is that the board assesses.
Okay, and then under 4I, the sum of $38,906 sewer extension is to be paid, and then the sum of $739 is in equal payments. Where does the $38,906 come from? Meaning, how does it relate to?
Yeah, I'd like to take a second look at that, only because we've already calculated the fee based on the 37.5 per 4-bedroom dwelling. And we've already have the attachment that lists all the dwellings, and we already came up with a number. So I'd like to revisit that number and confirm
that number and the other number should, if it's going to be the case, should be the total.
Correct.
I put it together and divided it up a number of times. It didn't come out to anything that seemed right.
Correct. Yeah. It got a little confusing. I know Dan had put some EDU changes in there. So I think once we get the draft back from Sharon, we can confirm the fee based on the number of dwellings that the town had listed in Exhibit A.
Okay. So we don't really have a.
Wayne, I think what that amount represented, I could be wrong, but I think it was like a 5% down payment. So I think that's what it was.
Correct.
Yeah, there was a down payment, but the total number, it was a down payment based on the total number. So there's probably some confusion on that aspect of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and expectation was we're basing this off of 83 bedrooms for the Cook Estates, because there's 27 units with different bedrooms. count.
Correct.
Which was
Correct.
what was done by the assessor's office. So I was going at the, times the cost per bedroom. I don't know where the difference comes in with EDUs, but we can't have an EDU that's split between homeowners. We're going to charge this to each individual homeowner based on their number of bedrooms. So it's got to equal the 83 or the number of bedrooms that come up here.
Correct. Yeah, we agree. We do agree with that, and that's how we're assessing it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Steve, I think with the $10,000 adjustment or thereabouts, the rounding issue, that it gets a lot closer to the number we had for our bedroom count.
Thanks.
You guys all right?
Yep.
I'm good.
So Sean will talk to Paul and work on a plan which will it won't be the as-built because it's not in yet, but it'll be as close to the as-built as we can provide to you something right now. And then if Sharon wants to take a draft of an easement that we can start to work on, it might not have the specifics on where the shut-off valve is going to be located, but if you want to work up a draft easement that we can look at and work with, that might speed up the process.
Yeah, I need to wait for the board to make a decision on that first.
Okay.
Do you want us to give you permission to do it? Is that what the decision is, or what?
Whether you want to be responsible for any portion of the main that goes onto the Cook Estates property.
Yeah, she can draft an easement, but we're gonna have to put in where we draw the line, right? So if the shut-off valve is at the pump, then that's where it is. And we just have to identify where that easement needs to be, and we don't know what homeowners will be affected by that easement, so we would know, how to access the property and what unit.
Yeah, all the common areas are owned by the association and not the homeowners, so
Okay.
So that
Makes it easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only perspective is because the area lease is in the rear of the property, as well as the pump station, I believe, too. In order to gain access with a truck or vehicle, you do need to go down some of these private driveways, probably.
Yep, understand.
Yeah, so Sharon, if you could just put a draft easement agreement together, with maybe location to be verified or something to that effect, then we can vote on it at our next meeting.
The typical thing would be by occupation. In other words, wherever it lies and where it was constructed. We'll show the plan, basically the approximate location, but we don't really necessarily need meets and bounds for the easement.
Okay.
And each of the common driveways are marked as a destination, meaning XYZ street or XYZ way, which would get them off of Sawyer Street and through the complex, because you don't know when something happens, whether or not the flow is coming out of a lawn somewhere and it's a single unit, or it's coming out of a group of places. So sometimes just the ability to drive around there and check it, because someone's going to call the sewer department when they find sewer water before they're going to say, who's the chairman of the condominium association and what's their number and all this other stuff. So
I'll be glad for you guys to get the first call.
Yeah.
There you go, Tom.
Okay, all right, so we all know what we're doing, I guess, on this. So why don't we go on to CJC with an update on that?
Okay. Thank you, everybody from Cook.
Okay, thank you.
Is anyone on from CJC that wants to give us an update as to where you are?
Bill, I guess I'm here. I was here for the One Pleasant Street matter, not necessarily this.
Okay.
But my understanding is that Dan has now given the green light. And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. And then essentially, Donald's working with John Hallen and for occupancy, and that's, from our standpoint, that's the totality of it.
Okay.
In terms of progress, there was some additional testing for the 380 force main, and that passed. But, and I guess they've come up with a resolution to the flow metering aspect that I guess wasn't there. And I don't know the schedule for that, but it may involve some additional equipment in the control panel.
So it seems as if it's moving along and we're all working collaboratively, and I suppose we can give you a further update at the next meeting. And we're still waiting on the pumps and controls for the 380 and the 400 building, which I think you're aware have been snafu'd as a result of the supply chain stuff and so forth. Our expectation is the month of November for those.
It seems like everyone in town is waiting for pumps.
Yep.
Trust me, is we're it's something that we're very anxious for as well, because otherwise we have, we don't want to have to deal with that into the winter months. So.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you.
We got One Pleasant Street now.
Great. I'm unable to turn my video on, and I wanted to share my screen, if possible. I don't know.
Let's see where you are here.
You guys can grant me that.
Yeah. Carol, can you promote him, please?
Okay.
Susan will be here at 10 to look at the unit.
Donald, you're unmuted. You need to mute yourself if you're having a separate conversation. Are you trying to talk to the commission, Donald?
No.
Okay, please mute yourself. All right, well, I'm unable to share my screen, my video, but I can share I'm disabled from sharing my screen as well. So if I could just be given that authority, I can share something of interest with you.
Yeah, Carol, can you promote?
I did promote him, and I'm not sure why he can't share his screen. I even had Lisa come in to check, and it isn't anything I'm doing on my end.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing, but if it can't be resolved, I'll just explain. So years ago, I had a client whose name is Kevin Myrise. Kevin owned the building where the Mr. Dooley's project was located. So in an effort to try and understand where, how similar properties were dealt with when it came to changes or substantial extensions to the amount of use of an existing sewer line, I was able to locate that file. And I then went into town hall. I was able to confirm the way the town I located a letter, and the letter indicated that the 2000 project for the Red Lion Inn, I guess it was in connection with, assessed each property owner basically the same amount, which amount was $6,066.99. And back in 2011, when Myrise went to get Mr. Dooley's pub, the commission applied a inflation index to that number and determined at the time that due to this particular index that it applied, that the fee was around $10,000. And so I then, when I was in town hall, took a look at what was happening on James Lane right across the street and discovered the exact same scenario. The exact same number of $6,099 and so with the same multiplier and the same index. So I think that in this particular circumstance, if we're going to treat everybody the same, as opposed to applying, you know, a $37,500 for a new property, which a new connection, which this is not, that that we should deal with it that way. But I was kind of waiting for Mr. Coughlin and Mr. Sawchuk to respond to, you know, to, I was expecting an analysis to come to me as to how this is being treated, because at the last meeting, I questioned the authority of the sewer commissioners at all to issue a new betterment. And so I'm wondering if we've achieved any conclusions from your end on that. And if not, I'm fairly reasonably confident that given these recent discoveries, that the way that we should be doing this and the way you have been doing it in the past has been the way I just described. And if that's the case, I'll just go ahead and incorporate that into my correspondence to the board. As far as, go ahead.
I believe we were waiting on your end as far as getting something with a breakdown of the uses and the estimated EDUs for the new facilities.
Well, I'm reticent to provide that until I understand what you know, how you arrive at your figure. I thought I was clear on that, because I need to know, what will you charge my client for this change in use? And then at that juncture, I will be able to write you correspondence indicating my analysis with that as a starting point.
The current policy of the board is $37,500 for each EDU, depending on the number of EDUs. So what we need from you is basically an estimation of the uses at the facility so that we can confirm or calculate the EDU count for the new facilities versus previously existing betterments.
So Dan, are you telling me that you'll be deviating from the standard practice of the board in this regard?
No, that's no longer the standard practice. A single EDU value was established by the board several years ago, and that has been implemented on a town-wide base.
And
That's the current
language
standard
of
practice.
so respectfully, the way I look at this is that you have a policy. The policy is there with the authority of the rules and regulations. So I think at the last meeting, I requested to be told, where in your rules and regulations does it say that you can issue a new betterment on a property that already has paid a betterment? Since the betterment was there essentially to reimburse the town its fee in putting the sewer main in. And I haven't received a response to that.
Basically, the commission can establish policies from time to time relative to its fee structures. And that's exactly what it's done. You're referring to an old policy. It's no longer applied by the sewer commission. They issued a new policy for residential connections as well as commercial connections. That's the policy that they have been implemented at this point in time. In terms of assigning more impacts or impact fee based upon the connection, what you're proposing is a modified use or a change in use that would increase the amount of flow into the system and thus increase the amount of impact it has on the system.
Right, and we would pay for that through our water fee as we use the water, right? Isn't that what that's for?
No, we have nothing to do with the water fee. This is basically the sewer commission, and they have their own basically enterprise fund as far as maintaining revenues and expenses. And in terms of impacts to the sewer system, the water use has nothing to do with that.
So I would be interested in the take of the individual members of the board on this, because what you're essentially telling me is something that was in place just a few years ago has now quadrupled in value. And I'm trying to understand the fundamental fairness in that. And
Well,
yeah.
So, you know, I'm new to the board, obviously. I know you say a few years ago, but we're talking about something that started in 2011 with some sort of inflationary index. If we have no idea what the formula was, inflationary index at that time. But
So
there is
2016, Paul, is the letter I'm looking at for the James Landing project, for the James Road project right across the street.
okay. So we would have.
And if I could share my screen, I would show you that.
Okay, so we would have to understand at the time when the sewer commission made that decision, under what circumstances did they make the decision. I know that there is a privilege hookup fee, and how we calculate that, I think, is the thing that we have to, as a commission, understand based on the fact that there is an existing sewer line there, but you can't put a facility on there and triple what the use is, an additional fee. And I guess the question is, how did the prior commission back in 2016 assess the fee versus how we assess fees currently? So that's something that the three of us have discussed, and we have not discussed that so far.
Yeah, the policy that you're talking about with the 37.5, I mean, theoretically, that's been in place, not just for a couple of years, it's been in place since about 2014. Or sorry, I take it back.
So if it was
first
in place,
initiated in 2014 and last revised in 2020.
so if it was in place in 2014, and I'm staring at a letter from 2016, then that begs the question as to why did you not apply 37,500 or whatever the applicable fee was pursuant to your then existing policy in 2014, 2 years
The policy
prior?
was revised several times, 2014, 15, 17, I believe 2020. But
Dan,
so-
could you provide me a copy of the policy that was in effect in 2016? January 2016, and that way I can take a look to see, you know, where in that policy the language existed that,
Yeah, I'm not
you know,
sure if I have that policy that originated from the sewer commission. I do have a copy of the most recent.
right. So, but am I not in front of the sewer commission right now?
Let's not get too pedantic on this right now. Yeah, I think we can go look back on it and do some due diligence, but it's not gonna be something that's gonna take like an hour. So I sort of, in fact, I do remember James Lane. I believe it was a housing project across the street, or 2 condos or whatever they were. I don't remember, and certainly I can go back because I keep my mails. I'll go back and see what I can find, but I can't promise you that's going to happen right tomorrow. And I think Wayne was the only other one that was on, but I'll look at it. I'm not going to promise you anything, but I'll certainly look at it and figure out what, why we did what we did. The one thing I remember, unfortunately, I didn't make the last meeting, but wasn't there also a request from the board that we know how many seats are going to be in the restaurant on the property you're talking about?
We can't, as I was thinking about this further, we know what the occupancy of the residential units are going to be. That's going to be 22 bedrooms, right? As far as the restaurant is concerned, I can give you an estimate. There's no reason for you to assess a fee based on an estimate. So when we have a tenant, and when the tenant files for a building permit, that will trigger knowledge as to the amount of seats that we're going to have, accurately. And so it would be at that time that you could, assess that figure. But as far as what I'm looking at, even though we're going to be increasing potentially the amount of restaurant seats, because it's presently, or it was previously 40, and I was given a range of 30 to 50. for the new potential tenant. What was evident in the materials I was looking at is that the amount of retail space and the amount of office space is actually decreasing. And that's because the building is being brought up to new building code, and we're going to be having hallways and shared bathrooms, which are, so each particular rentable space is, in the aggregate, is going to require less flow than the prior building on the first floor, even if we had 40 restaurant seats. So, but it's so speculative to review this until we know the actual number of restaurant seats. And I think that we probably can do it at that time, but certainly, I mean, I don't know why we would do it otherwise.
Jeff, is there an application in place now?
Yeah, I think that there was an application so I looked in the file, Dan.
No, I meant for One Pleasant now,
Yeah.
an application for modified use. Yeah.
So I looked in the file, and I know that the owner submitted an application of some sort or another to the commission, I want to say in March or April of this year. And I think that, that was for purposes potentially of just having maybe a foundation permit. There's lumber going up on this property right now. So, but there was an application. And I think that, you guys can confirm that, from your file.
Yeah, I mean, that has to clearly depict, what the uses are, the number of, the criteria for the EDU count. So,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
doesn't,
if
it's
that-
not that, yeah, it's not that comprehensive.
Okay, then the permit at this point in time is incomplete. And I don't think the board really even needs to take an action until there is a completed application before them.
But why can't this board tell me what the fee is now?
Why can't you tell us what's going in the building now?
I can, but I want to know.
Without the restaurant.
What is your policy?
And Jeff, let me just be clear. I'm getting a little agitated with the fact you're telling us what we should be doing as a board. That doesn't fly with me. If you want to ask us questions and you want to ask our opinion and ask our counsel, fine. And you want to work collaboratively, that's great. But if you're going to tell us what to do, I'm not into that.
Okay, so
I'd like to talk for a second. Bill, I think that there are unknowns in every situation. They're building a building. The first floor is going to be office or retail. And how do you know what tenant you're going to get until, in some cases, the building is finished and there's a sign up that says for rent and stuff like that. And I think it is only fair to, I don't know, I guess there's two things. The way we do it today, in some cases, is not right, because it started with the Little Harbor District. It cost $13 million. There were 450 houses. It came to $28,800 because the town was not going to take a share of the cost of building that. And therefore, the people with houses at that point in time, that's what they had to pay the town through a betterment to pay 100% of the cost of it. In addition to that, they had to take it from the line to the house. That somehow was a situation where when someone had vacant land there wasn't a stub put in, and and you didn't know what to charge the person. So you charged them with the $28,500 because that's what the price was for that area. The village is something that has, in many cases, been, when the sewer was put in 1972, every building got a sewer connection that cost $2,000, of which the town paid $1,000 and the building owner paid. If it was 5 apartments in it, it was 1 connection. If it was whatever it was. It wasn't really until things like the Red Lion Inn wanted to totally renovate and stuff that it even came to light that, wait a minute, they're going to be using more sewer with this massive, event place and all these other things. But for the most part, the village has stayed pretty much the way it is. Then came along Pleasant Street, which, and just before that, when something happened, and I don't know whether it was the red line or anything, that EDU came out to the $6,000. And it was, and then from then, a couple of years later, when a residential thing, it became the $9,000 per EDU. And in fact, most of it was really, there's a few, like Mr. Dooley's ended up having it. But the rest of the building has been renovated. We're doing a nice little general store. They didn't come to us and say, do I need to pay more money to keep this connection to the store? I don't think they did it at all. But what is going to be inside that store? Is part of it a little sit-down seats restaurant? Is part of it over here? Is part of it over here? That hasn't come before us, and I don't necessarily think it should change. But if we're going to do something to one person and try to impose the unrealistic amount of the $37,500, maybe times 4 or 5, it starts getting to be, this doesn't seem to be fair. You're treating someone now so much different than someone in the past. That's my spiel. And I think there should be more discussion on it at another meeting and stuff, and trace where we are and see why it changed from the 9,000, whatever it was 2 or 3 years ago, to 15,000, or 35,000, whatever it happens to be now, $37,500.
Just so the board knows, there was a defined base. It was basically an escalation of the original cost to present dollars using the Boston Construction Cost Index. So there was a defined mechanism for escalating those costs. And I think for the most part, I mean, the cost of the downtown area continued to increase beyond the 9,000. My recollection, it might have been in the 15 or 16,000 range at one point in time as well, based upon that escalation value. So it's not really quadrupled on what you were assigning before, but it's potentially doubled for that downtown area.
So you're telling me, Dan, that you calculated the 37,500 as the amount that it should be for the village?
No, that was a vote of the board to make all the EDU dollar value equal throughout the entire town in order to promote equity to the entire town.
Right.
So the other developments, the north and the Little Harbor, both were up in that range. And all you did was basically made it town-wide when the policy was adopted.
I'm gonna disagree with that, because when the betterment schedule came in for the motel there, they ended up paying $6,428 a month for 20 years, or $122,000 for 20, I guess the equivalent of 20 EDUs. And across the street, the total bill was $6,400 for a single family home that was a four family home. And that happened in 2000. And so it's, and that had to be done with the escalation, because the $6,428 sounds exactly like the $6,428 it was in Cohasset Village on the businesses. So the key thing is if we go ahead and try to sewer South Main Street, and we're going to go right up front and say, listen, folks, you got to pay for the cost of putting the pipe in, and then you got to pay $37,500 on top of that, and then you got to run the line to your house at your expense. Do you think South Main Street will ever get sewered? No. unless they got a grant for all the construction and you did not charge them for any betterments.
Generally speaking, Wayne, just a clarification, if you do a sewer expansion, the total final cost of that construction project is what is typically assigned as the initial betterment. So,
Right, but your downtown was put in 1972. You have not put in any new lines. We did not run a sewer pipe up Pleasant Street, you know, and stuff like that. It's paid for. How can you?
Right,
Right,
but part of the, right, Wayne, doesn't part of the fee also talk about the ongoing maintenance of the entire sewer, sort of bloodline, maintenance of the plant, the revised costs that we have from 2020 to what we're doing now as part of our Woodard and Curran contract on a yearly basis? It's gone up a lot in that
Plus,
period.
plus sleeves and replacement of pipes.
Yeah, I mean, I think our overall general budget and cost today is totally different from what it was 20 years ago. I wouldn't even know, but I'm sure it's much more. I mean, just our operator contract alone has gone up significantly. The cost of electricity, the cost of everything else. We have to cover that somehow.
So I think to get back to Jeff's question really is, it's not a matter of how our fees are, because we've already voted and published fees last year of what our fees are. The question really is how do we assess One Pleasant Street that has a line that already exists? So that's the question for us. And I think that we need to go back and find out how existing property in that area were assessed that had existing signs put in, and they had a change of use. An example was brought up as the Red Lion Inn. They may have doubled or tripled their EDU usage. And how did the sewer commission at that point calculate it? And I'd like to see if we have established a formula or a format to calculate a change of use with increase in use or decrease in use. We need to find out what that formula was. And I think that's all we're looking to do at this point for One Pleasant Street, is to identify if he's going to triple the usage of sewer, there's a fee for that. The question is, how do we calculate that fee?
Yeah,
So Dan,
I'll share with you the information that I found on just the two that I looked into. Bill, I didn't mean to, I am a little agitated this morning. My apologies. My process as a lawyer is pick up your rules and regulations, right? And I just want to be clear. When I look at that, I think it's Article X of Roman numeral 10. When I look at that section, I see the ability to assess charges for new connections, which is called a betterment charge. And then the only other charge that I see in there is a user charge, which the paragraph indicates is to be assessed for maintenance purposes, amongst others, to maintain the system. And the only conclusion I can come to is that the user charge is the water fee that's assessed on a quarterly basis. So we know that the betterment is for new connections. We know that the user charge is for that. And then to Paul's point, we need to figure out, how do you assess changes or substantial modifications or increases in use? I am not suggesting that this property should not pay a fee. I'm trying to understand how you've treated things in the past, because frankly, I don't think your policy is clear. It talks about the fact that a new EDU costs $37,500. Well, this isn't a new EDU. We have an existing infrastructure which has been paid off, and we're trying to figure out what's the fair price to charge this owner. Is it going to be $200,000-300,000, or is it going to be something less than that? So you have asked me for the materials. In fairness, I will give you those materials. You're gonna find 22 bedrooms. There's going to be a decrease in the amount of a Title V design flow on the first floor from what was there previously, and then there's going to be the restaurant, which previously had 40 seats, and is either going to have, I think, 20 to 40 seats. That's pretty much going to be the calculation, and I've done it. And I've done it with the escalator the way you've done it previously, and I've arrived at a number, and that's what I'm looking for from the board is what's your number? How are you looking at this? How are you calculating this? And in fairness, I think that anybody should be able to walk into town hall and say, what does this cost? And there's nothing there for a change in use other than an application fee so that you guys can determine if you have capacity to handle the additional flow. So, I'll provide that. And again, my apologies for getting agitated, but it is kind of an agitating situation. And I do think in light of this conversation, it would be helpful to know what was the policy in effect when these other properties changed their uses, right? So right across the street, I have James Lane in 2016, and you're telling me you had a policy as early as 2014. I'd be interested to see, so if I can't get it through a normal route, I'll have to request a public records request, which is ridiculous. Just please try and find the policy and give me the policy that was in effect 2014 through 2016 so I can analyze this and provide you guys with accurate information, or at least a reasonably cogent argument as to what's going on here. So I take it that you guys probably don't want to talk about this further today. I'll shoot you the information, and then it'll be properly in front of you, and we'll just have to deal with it at the next meeting.
So we'll, what we'll do is receive the plan from you with the 22 bedrooms and an estimated 40 restaurant. Dan, you could go with those numbers right now. And then Dan, follow up with, we adjusted the policy several times. There was one in effect in 2014. I think you dated 2017 and 2019. I can't remember. So let's find out what the policy was in 14, but then if that policy, we'd like to take a look at those subsequent revisions to the policy and then see what the latest one is that would apply to the property.
So Dan, I'll just give you a spreadsheet existing proposed so that you have it. All right.
That'd be great.
I'm sorry, Paul, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to follow up with the what tasks are a result of the conversation here, which is basically you'll send us the spreadsheet with the information on it. Dan's going to take a look at the policies, which there was one in place, he stated in 2014, but he did state there were subsequent revisions to that policy. So we'll find out what it was in 14 and the revisions to the current date, what the date of the most recent revision. And then the commission is going to have to take a look at our change in use policy and how we apply the fee structure to the. So that's something that we have to do as a board. So
yeah, my point is, and I brought this point up with respect to the project on Chief Justice Cushing Highway a year ago, is that your policies can't exceed the authority given to the board in the rules and regulations. And so you start with the rules and regulations. That is what the requirement is, and the policy is just there to aid guidance to that. But you can't write new regulations into a policy that are not in your rules and regulations, which is the authority to give you guys the right to issue that policy. Now I'm getting a little technical, but that's at least how I view it and how my understanding is that the law works.
I'm not sure if I agree with that entirely. I mean, there are enabling legislative acts that give the sewer commission some broad powers that aren't necessarily defined as implementation items in the rules and regs. So
okay.
I think the powers aren't limited to the rules and regs. They're limited by the enabling legislation.
Mhm. Okay, I'll shoot you guys that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I think if we have, let's see, I'm not sure if everyone's still on. I think we wanted to talk about very briefly, the break on Jerusalem Road. And I know Scott's on and Brian is still on. You guys want to just brief the board collectively as to what happened and remediation and all of that?
Yeah, we did get
Absolutely.
to the police report, so that was pretty detailed.
Yeah, so and I've shared the draft version of the SSO form, 5-day report form that I'm gonna file probably right after this meeting. You know, a real quick version of it is, you know, to be quite honest with you, Brian might know a little bit more than me. I'm not even sure why the guy was digging in the first place. But he was out there digging, not even on his own property. He was on somebody else's property. And he hit a water line and then he hit a sewer line. And they didn't really know what to do about it, I guess, or who to call. I guess the police found it. Officer Kimball found the break. Everybody called it in. Unfortunately, we were arms deep in cleaning of membranes, so I didn't really get the call right away. So we had a little lag on the response time, but you know, I went out there. The gentleman actually had all the plans for the street and the road. We identified which valve at the bottom of the street to close. We closed that valve. We shut off everybody's grinder pumps, and that stopped the flow. So then we could deal with what we have. Ended up calling Rosanna Davis, obviously, to come out, you know, pump down the hole that they had made. We did a street cleanup. Per DEP and Cohasset Conservation, you know, we didn't use any bleach due to the area that we were in. Just a little sand over it, sweep up the sand and move on. I've been by there every day this week, just kind of checking on what it looks like and how they're going with the progress. They haven't really done anything else. So that's kind of where we stand from my end. Can I answer any questions that you have?
I mean, do you know why? I mean, does anyone know why he was actually digging? I mean, was he looking for gold or what?
Yeah, so so I spoke to him after we spoke on the phone when I was out there, Bill, and he so the resident who I gave you, he's a civil engineer. This property is it's basically, it's not a road or a private road, it's a shared common driveway. I want to say there's probably 10 houses up there. Apparently everybody on that street has, so this is Aquarian Water Service, not Aquarian, it's owned by Hingham now, Ware River Water System. So their water services come off of Jerusalem Road, and apparently these water services, each of the houses, you know, 10 to 12 houses have their own individual water service going down to Jerusalem Road, and the piping it's basically irrigation piping, and it's had a lot of leaks and issues out there. So it was a poor piping installation. And this resident, because he's in the industry, was managing replacing, I think it was 3 water services, you know, for 3 of the residents up there. They were digging on the grass. So again, it's all private property. They did not pull a street opening permit. They did call in a dig safe, but the town utilities, water, sewer, drainage are not on dig safe. We only capture those markouts via a street opening permit. And we talked with John Hallen about, you know, he did not have a trench permit, which if you're digging anywhere, whether it's on public or private property, you need to do a trench permit. So he did call dig safe, did not have a trench permit. They struck the water line and the sewer line. So it's a large volume of, you know, flow going down the driveway, and it was all sewer flow. You know, once water touches sewer, it's all sewer. But the large amount of the flow was really the mix of domestic water with the sewer pipe. So that's, and Scott calculated it. I think it was what, 7,500 gallons or something like that. in total.
It's gonna just under
Oh,
15,000.
sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
15,000 gallons with 7,500 pumped up with the Vector. So that's basically what happened. They were replacing the water main. They did have Ware River Water System on site when it happened. They preemptively shut off the services, knowing that they were going to replace the services. There was no notice to anybody in the town until, you know, it was discovered by the police department. And then the response, you know, Murphy's Law, Scott's all space suited up, bleaching the membranes at the plant. So that's basically what happened.
So my question on this is is he going to be paying for everything? I mean, for cost to the town, cost to, you know, Rosano, Scott, everybody?
It's all the homeowner who was the contractor who was doing the work.
So do we,
We will be paying Rosano Davis for what they did, and then I can just forward, you know, the invoice to you guys to try to get reimbursed from the homeowner.
all right,
You know, and the response is pretty, it looked like, you know, the entire police department and fire department were up there as well as the sewer department and DPW. We shut the street down. So it was a robust response with a lot of personnel and equipment.
Who's the contractor?
It wasn't,
Yeah.
so he was working for the homeowner, but it wasn't. The gentleman on the digger had it's in Scott's report. I don't know it offhand, but he apparently was not working for the contractor. He was working for this homeowner.
The operator of the machine, you say?
Correct.
That's right. Yeah, it's in the police report.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably not bonded as well.
yeah.
Unified Construction was the name on the shirt and who the digger is connected with, but it wasn't a United Construction job, supposedly. It was a personal job. So, and the contractor, Unified Construction, really wanted to stay out of it.
Sure.
So now, I think, first of all, I think that it was incredible what Rosano Davis could supply for an event like this. He had everything. He had the pump trucks, he had the people, he had everything to be able to do it. And I think they deserve a thank you in addition to probably getting paid quickly.
Yeah.
And without them, we would really be in a lot more problems, because as you know, the one time we called someone from out of town, the bill was tremendous amount of money. And this probably is going to be between around 10 or 15 or 10 to $20,000 as it is. But it was fixed. Now, what do you do about the fact that the water and sewer pipes are in the same, right next to each other? Do you have them change the location of the sewer pipe or the water pipe so it has some sort of a 10-foot separation or something that's better? In other words, are you just going to patch them and leave them there and potentially have the same thing happen another time?
I guess they never called flags on the property identifying where the lines were.
No,
They
but
ju-
you
they
now
just have
know
the
where they
water
are.
marked out. And just on that note, I agree, Wayne. The Rosano Davis response was great, and you know, actually Paul Davis was out there and all those guys, and he had a really nice shirt on because he just left his anniversary lunch with his wife. So there's just I can't say enough like that. You know, they did a great job. But the sewer, from what I could see in the excavation, so you're right, it needs to be 10-foot separation, and if it's not, it needs to be sleeved or encased. And the sewer had and I don't know if this qualifies, you know, I'll ask Dan too. It was an insulated sewer pipe, so I don't know if that insulation, you know, it qualifies as a sleeve, but it was an insulated pipe because the burial was about 3 feet deep.
Yeah, how far away was the water service or services?
So yeah, it was a poor development, but the water services were all apparently all in line on the edge of their driveway down to individual taps on Jerusalem Road. And where they broke the pipe, the sewer service was coming into it at an angle. So I don't know really where it went, you know, how it goes from there. We can look at the plan, but it appeared that it was insulated and it had some sort of sleeve on it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, with the shallow burial pipes, high ledge areas, basically, they were allowed with a 2-inch insulation and a polyethylene jacket. The pipe itself is the pressure vessel, though. That's the 200 PSI class pipe. And I'm sure the water was probably the Simba class pipe. And I think it would be allowed if it was placed in a separate trench or 3 feet away, if they're both, you know, have a pressure rating that of over 165 or so. Now, the question of pipe integrity is always the issue. Is, you know, typically you need something to protect the pipes. If you have multiple water sleeves over there, it's going to be tough to do that, and no one really wants to encase. Are they copper, I'm assuming? Or are they plastic?
No, from what I didn't see it, the water, I did see the sewer, but the water apparently were, you know, it was just a plastic irrigation pipe.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the DR9 or 7, whatever they're using, is probably 200 class pipe as well. So you have 2 pipes that are 200 class, but if you're worried about, you know, protection from similar conditions like this, you know, I mean, theoretically, the pressure pipe would protect it as far as, you know, cross connections, but, you know, sometimes what we'll do is we'll have one put in a separate sleeve, or have the sewer pipe encased. Typically, I don't like to encase the water lines. But I mean, I don't think there's really any action you need to do now. The only question is how the repair was done, and if the repair method would be sufficient to maintain a 200 class pipe.
So the repair was done adequately, and I'll get more information from Rosano, but I think, you know, this development, that if they plan to continue, they're going to be digging all the way down to Jerusalem Road, and I'm not sure, you know, before they do anything, I'll talk to John Hallen about what protections, you know, and what kind of permissions we want to give them. But if the sewer main is right next to or in that trench, you know, we'll need to consider some sort of restrictions on them.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, just looking at the development, they really should have a singular, you know, 6 or 8 inch main going all the way up the hill, you know, and
Water
with a
ladder,
hydrant at
right.
the top, and everyone has their own service connection instead of all these spaghetti strands going down to the
Yeah,
street.
spaghetti's very dangerous.
Yeah. But that's not a town, that's Hingham, Ware River water.
Right.
Well, Wayne, to your point, do you think, because I was thinking about this, is have the board write a letter to Rosano Davis thanking them for their response?
Second,
Was that a yes? I didn't hear you.
I agree, yes.
I do.
Okay. All right. I'll put something together, so.
I have unfortunately, one other quick thing that I need to discuss with you and kind of see what we want to do about it. We are in the process of cleaning membranes right now. And we have discovered that we have seen some delamination going on with these membranes. It is pretty much on every single one on side 1. And we are in the process of cleaning side 2 right now, and we're finding delamination on the side 2 membranes as well. The other issue that we're having is Suez asked us to put on those new LEAP aeration skirts. So we took care of that in March and in June. So we have 6 months on side 1 and 3 months on side 2. And we're struggling to produce water at the moment. We had to pull all the LEAP aeration skirts off. We found each skirt was packed with sludge. Air wasn't being able to be moved through the skirts and up into the membranes. So currently we've changed all the skirts back to the normal ones on side 1. We are in process of cleaning side 2 and changing the skirts on side 2. But I think I want to make you guys aware, everybody aware of the bigger issue is the delamination that we're seeing after 2.5 years.
On the membranes.
On the membranes themselves. So back in March, when we did the first round of cleaning, we found a little delamination on one cassette. And we let Suez, Matt Stapleford, I let him know. They didn't really have a whole lot. They thought it was maybe just isolated to just that one. I haven't reached back out to them. I wanted to discuss with the board first and see what, how we want to go about what we can do, what we should do, what you want to do about it, how you want me to go forward. But the delamination is certainly an issue on these things that we're going to have to talk to somebody about.
Is there a warranty of any kind on them?
I really wasn't involved with that part. I believe that there was a warranty, and I kind of remember an extended warranty based on the fact that we had so many struggles getting these cassettes. And, I don't know if Suez threw that in, if it's something that you guys purchased. I unfortunately wasn't really involved with that, so I don't know.
I thought it was like 10 years.
Yeah, well, they're a 10-year useful life. Yeah. But I would think it was at least like a 3 to 5 year. I don't want to put a specific number on it, but there had to have been some type of warranty on it. And that's why I just want to make you guys aware of it as soon as possible. We can get some balls rolling.
Two questions, Scott. Do you have pictures of the delamination?
Oh, absolutely. Pictures of that, pictures of the air skirts, all. Yep, absolutely.
And what we're talking about is the spaghetti strands and the outer coating of that peeling off. Is that what you're talking about?
That's correct. Yep.
So not breaking of the strands, basically just the coating on the exterior, which
exactly
is probably the pour.
Right, which is going to open them up to, fouling and other issues as well.
Yeah. So, and I'm trying to remember, did the town or the sewer board actually buy them, or did that go through you, Woodard and Curran, and we reimbursed you? Do you remember?
I believe that was a capital purchase through the town, correct?
Okay. Yeah, no, I just, so we should have a purchase order / contract with them that would state what the warranty and all that is. And Carol, can you ask Michelle if she can dig that up?
Sure.
I believe you got the extended warranty because the delays in Belgium.
Right, yeah, I thought that as well. I thought they kind of threw in the extended warranty because of all our troubles of getting them. I could just be misremembering, but
how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious do you think this is right now? And then how serious it will get in like 30 days, 90 days type of thing?
It's serious. We're still able to produce water. We're cleaning right now. I will have a better answer, unfortunately, in 7 days when we clean all 7 cassettes on side 2, change out the skirts, and see how it reacts. If everything comes back and it's working and all they needed was to be cleaned, perfect. We're still going to have to address the delamination because that's going to, the 10-year useful life with delamination at year 2, we're not going to make 10 years off with them. That's, they're definitely going to have to do something.
Should we have somebody from the manufacturer be on our next session so you can give a report and we can get an idea what's going on?
I agree. Yes, absolutely. Yep. We want to get that ball rolling as soon as possible so we can get them on board.
So Scott, just on this one relative to the old ones that we replaced. So this was installed, if I remember, it was like COVID summer 2020, right?
Yep, April 2020 and then May of 2020.
Yeah. So the ones that you took out, were those, I remember those were broken and stuff, but were the old ones delaminated or were they just kind of like broken and ratty?
Nah, they were just broken and old. I didn't see a whole lot of delamination on those. I'm sure after 12 years there was a little, but nothing. I mean, these jump right out at you. As soon as we pull them out of the cassette, out of the tank, and we rinse them off, I could see right away. it looks like a snake is, peeling its skin off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scott, do you, as Woodard and Curran, do you have other clients that have the same treatment system? And if so, are they getting any kind of issues with these membranes?
We don't, that I know of, have anybody that have these similar membranes that are actually using them right now. So no, I don't really have anybody to bounce anything off of, see how they're doing.
We can find
these,
or Bill, how many customer complaints they've received in the last 2 years, or how many, customer inquiries they've had on delaminating of membranes.
Yeah. Well, I think if we can get somebody to our next meeting, if you can, whoever you're talking to, Scott, or whoever your contact is, if they can have somebody come to our next meeting, and when is it? The
8th, yeah.
The 8th, yeah.
Yeah.
So have them come the 8th, then we can, quiz them on all this stuff.
So I'd like to interject something here real quick. We cannot meet on the 8th, that's election day.
That's right.
Oh, November 8th is election day.
That's right.
Big day.
Oh, wonderful. How about the next day? Is the 9th work for anybody?
The 9th is a Wednesday, it's wide open.
I'm good.
Yeah, all right. Do the 9th then. So let me ask you the death question, Scott. What happens if these things just up and die? We're gonna be back to pumping again, right?
We're gonna be back to where we were in November of 19, yes.
They're not gonna,
Yeah, I don't think, Rob's right here, we can't do 2 at a time,
I'm
so.
sorry, they're not gonna up and die instantly. What happens is that the lamination just keeps the integrity of the structure. So as it delaminates, it's easier for the strands to break. So over time, the strands will break, but the membranes will keep working, where you start passing solids and have to do repairs on the strands. So it's critical, but it's not like where we were last go around 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Just also to interject, I think we had a 2-year full warranty and an 8-year prorated warranty.
That sounds right, Dan. That's kind of how I remember
So
that.
it's a total of 10 years. But the first 2 years obviously have passed probably, so we're into the prorated warranty. So if the membranes are failing, they basically, can be replaced. We just would need to pay a certain amount.
Yeah, I just emailed that PO and to everybody.
And the initial call with Matt Stapleford, it was kind of like just passing it off as nothing. Excessive air, excessive agitation. Those guys, provided all the set points, told us we had to get air. I mean, it's not like you had excessive air. It was the opposite in the beginning. So his answer was, get some silicone, because you get, it's called Jiu-Jitsu out of Japan, and it cures underwater for the strands. His answer was simply, put silicone on all of it. Well, they're too new to go that route. So the quicker we get everyone involved, the better.
Why wouldn't they be doing anything rather than you guys? I mean, if it's their product.
I don't think he took it I don't think he took much severity in the call, and then Scott's moved on to pull them all and start inspecting them. Right, so it went for like a one-off to, hey, potentially it's right across every membrane now.
Was there any correlation with the skirts, the proximity to the skirts or the sludging?
With the delamination,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's tough to tell. I don't really know how we could, like quantify that.
Just location wise.
Yeah, the skirts were just, like I said, I have pictures of it where you could see that the biggest difference between the 2 skirts is one is completely wide open and lets all the air come through. The Leap aeration skirts, they've completely closed it down and just have like 3 or 4 small holes for air to get through. Well, our mixed liquor is what it is. We're a little thicker here. But I don't think at any mixed liquor that those aeration skirts going to be any good, because you'll see them when I show you the pictures. We pull them out, every one of them is packed solid with sludge. So there's just nowhere for that air to go anymore. And that's what's contributed. I mean, we're 3 months into a clean on side one, and we're already seeing increased TMPs. We already know we got to clean it again. So we don't want to have to get into cleaning every couple months, because that's all we're going to end up doing. Yeah, I can reach out to Suez and ask them to be on this meeting, and obviously I'll fill them in. They're gonna have a little response, I'm sure. If they come back with anything, I'll certainly forward it to you before then.
All right.
That's where we are.
Wonderful.
Excellent. And good news is Tupelo pumps are in. Everything's working great there. I'll give you that. I'll end on some good news.
Okay, good.
We got 2 brand new pumps, check valves, all sorts of good stuff at Tupelo. So next, we can cross that one off the list.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yep.
everyone.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you, guys. Anything else that we need to talk about?
I'm good.
I'm good.
So who wants to take the lead on the Pleasant Street issues that were brought up today? Because we're gonna have to do some forensic studies on finding out what the hell we did back X years ago. And
Yeah, I'd like
all
to
of
see,
that.
the policies that Dan says were in place. And see how, I don't know where the James Lane letter is that obviously it's in the town hall somewhere, because Jeff was able to get a copy of it. So maybe it's with the building department. I don't know. But how it was calculated.
Well, it's the older policies, probably you'll have to get those from Carol through research with the files. The only ones I drafted up were the most recent ones for the residential and commercial. So I have those, but I think what Delisi's looking for is some of the older policies.
Well, I don't know if we have a sort of a good existing policy, because it's not something that is being universally applied, because things happen without permits and everything else. But I think we at least have to go back to the Red Lion Inn as some sort of a starting point, because that project was large enough that it had to include the sewer commission and increase flows. So I'm very happy to work with Carol on getting some of the information together, and have someone else, Paul or something like that, or Bill, we can sit down and try to make some sense to it.
Yeah, I don't mind. I just need the documents to read through and find out how they were done.
Yeah, and I sort of remember, I think I was, well, not just on the board, but I was on the board a couple of years when James Lane was going on. There was something, I vaguely remember the discussion. I'd have to go back and see if I have anything on that, because I won't extrapolate. There was something going on and I just can't remember what it was. So.
Yeah, was there 8 condos over there or something?
Yeah, they're quite, I think they're probably 11 or 12.
Yeah.
He had a house there and he wanted to get credit for the house and stuff. And I think there was a little thing about maybe they were only going to be 2-bedroom, and they didn't necessarily turn out to be just 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be no more than 1,500 square feet, but they tended to rise up to 2,000 square feet. And
yeah, that's
the unfinished bonus room.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
I started to remember that now, Wayne. Yeah.
I saw all four floors finished off at one point on one of them. So they had, stand-up basements. They had the first and second floor, and then they had a finished attic. And we had to say, you can't put a door on this and stuff like that and make it another room. But of course, that's only until someone's going to move in, when
you do it anyway.
So, but that part, is less concerned with, what was charged and what was the basis of what was charged.
Yeah, so once we're on the historical baseline, then we can come up with a method that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll certainly distribute everything I have. I just
Okay.
also wanted to check if everyone was able to download the rules and regulations.
I was not able to get the app downloaded. I just, they didn't want to let me get it. So I'm still trying to do that.
Yeah, I see Brian is waving at me at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So no, Michelle just came in to talk about something else and I bombarded her with the membrane. So we were just talking about it offline and Michelle is our MCPPO.
So I understand that Rob and Scott made contact with the manufacturer of the membranes to tell them of the failure. And they didn't really have any great resolution. I think we call the contract. I can make the first contact and let them know there'll be a meeting that we're looking for resolution for your next meeting. So give them an action item that they have to come back to us. So we're starting a process. How does everyone feel about that?
Sounds appropriate.
Okay. Okay, so I'll do that today. I'll make contact with them today.
Awesome.
Just to clarify, I'm not sure if Rob or Scott has notified them of the extensive delamination they now found. So they may only know about that initial delamination in a small section that they noticed.
So I'll reach out to Rob and Scott and get all the facts before I go back to them.
Yeah, and Scott's got a bunch of pictures.
Okay, but
me-
since we did initiate the contract, I think they should hear from the town.
So we are the holder of the contract for the purchase of membranes. No one else is. There's no collateral assignment like that, right?
No,
Would it-
it was the town
was the
director,
town.
Suez.
All right. Well, and then we might have them next week after you talk, in 2 weeks, Michelle, we might have them come before the board. So if you're around on the 9th.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think they should come to the board, but I think they should come to the board with a resolution to the problem, not just to hear about the problem again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that today.
All right, very good.
All right,
Thank you.
have a good day.
You
Thanks.
too. Does anyone have anything else?
Not at this time.
No, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All right, so we'll do a roll call. Bill McGowan, aye.
Your side.
Wayne Sawchuck, aye.
Okey doke.
Guys, see you on the 9th.